What's good, y'all? Back again, another day, and today we're going over my favorite books of 2021. Now, these aren't books that came out in 2021, rather, these are the books that I read in 2021. Every year I try to read a lot of books. Last year I read like 76, 77, 75, somewhere in that 70 range. I got it written down somewhere, or it's on my Instagram. You can go look. But in any event, I try to read a lot of books. And in the past, like I said, last year I read like 70 something books. And what I found was that even though I read a lot of those books, I really wasn't retaining the information. I was just reading books just to read books. And yes, I did finish a lot of books and it sounds cool, but a lot of times I just got overwhelmed and I stopped enjoying reading. So this year I didn't focus on the quantity of books, but I rather focused on the quality of books. So I think I only read like 20 maybe, or 17, something like that. But the books that I read were very, very good. I read some of the same books over and over 2 or 3 times, and I'll definitely highlight those books for you. But there were some books that I just had to read more than once, and for me, I consider reading, listening to audiobooks as well, just completing a book and understanding it. Most books I have audio and digital ebooks. I do still read hard print books, and I have a couple of those as well. So, like I said, I'm sorry, I've been in my thoughts, so I haven't really been blah. But yeah, so we're gonna go over these books. I'm gonna let you know what I read. You feel free to drop a comment. Let me know if you read those books as well. Let me know if you like those books. Let me know if you didn't like those books. We could go from there. I will be putting pictures of the videos over in this corner over here, which is why I have that space set aside. Also, I will make sure that I put a description of where you can purchase each of the books online. I do have some links if you want to get the free ebooks, but you're going to have to hit me up, shoot me a DM on Instagram or Twitter or whatever, and I can hook you up. Just holler at me. But I can't be just putting the site out there like that and all that good stuff because they may take it down. So, like I said, you got to hit me up if you want the link to the ebooks, or the ebook link where you can go download them for the free ski, the PDFs. I got those too. I try to stay away from them, but like I said, a lot of books I have double, sometimes triple, because when it comes down to it, if it's a book that I really enjoy, I have a digital, I have an audio, and I have a physical. Pretty much all Robert Greene books, I have that three trifecta. Like, I gotta have the digital. That way, if I want to look at it and read it while I'm doing something, I can do that. If I want to touch the book and highlight something, I can do that. Or if I'm driving and I just want to listen to it, I can do that. So I have different variations of Robert Greene books. And there's a couple authors that I do that with as well. But Robert Greene, in my opinion, is the GOAT. So I have a lot of his books I have all of his books, but I have them in different methods and different what's the word that artists use, different medias, you know what I'm saying? So without further ado, let's get into it. My favorite book that I read this year was Why Should White Guys Have All the Fun? And it is about Reginald Lewis, who also happens to be my frat brother, but that's not why it's my favorite book. I really enjoy it because it shows that it was just a regular black man. He grew up normally, and he just wanted to go out there and get it. He had the drive and the ambition, and he stayed focused, and he had to get the gab, and he was able to do something that many people will never ever do in their lifetime. He bought a multi-billion-dollar business, and he died at 50 years old. That's the unfortunate part of the story, but within those 50 years, he accomplished so much. He lived 2 or 3 different lifetimes, and it's just a really interesting book to see, how one man was able to do so much in such a short amount of time. And he wasn't an athlete. He wasn't a media personality. He wasn't famous. He became famous based off of the success that he did with his business. But other than that, he was just a regular man that went to an HBCU. He finessed his way into Harvard. And when I say finesse, I legit mean finesse. He finessed his way into Harvard, and then he took that and became a lawyer. And then once he became a lawyer, he learned a lot about businesses, buying and selling businesses. And he was able to take that and become a $1 billion man. You know what I'm saying? So I would definitely check that book out. This is one of the books that I've read 2 or 3 times this year. I had the audio book. I have the ebook, and I went through both of them. Like, this is a book, and it spoke to me so much because, like I said, he didn't have a grandfather with money or something like that. He was just a regular black dude from Baltimore, and he was able to take that and do astronomical things within a very short period of time. So definitely check that one out. The next book is The Ride of a Lifetime. It is Bob Iger, who was the former CEO of Disney World. I really like that book a lot because it talks about how he made the biggest purchases for Fox, Marvel. It was Fox, Marvel, Star Wars, and Pixar, and he created Disney Plus, and then he left. So I thought that was really dope because it talks about how he had to wine and dine these people and how he had to be a really good communicator and go through things and meet with these different personalities. It's like he knew that Steve Jobs was going to die before he died because he talked to Steve Jobs and Steve Jobs told him, So it's really interesting to see how he dealt with all these people. He had dealings with Rupert Murdoch. He had dealings with what's the guy's name from Star Wars? Not Steven Spielberg, George Lucas. And so it was really interesting to see how he went into each of these situations and dealt with these people and understood who they were, and figured out how to get them what they needed. So ultimately, it's a great book on if you want to learn how to negotiate and deal with people in order to get what you want. If you want to learn how to broker deals. I was reading something about Reed Hastings, who was the CEO, who is the CEO rather, of Netflix, and he was talking about how the book only focused on highs for the most part and not really the lows. And that was true. I think that's a fair criticism. He doesn't talk about the deals that he lost or the deals that fell apart, which I think that would have been cool too, to see how he dealt with adversity and struggle. It talked about the fight that he had to do in order to become CEO, and it talked about the way that he dealt with the previous CEO, who Michael Eisner, who everybody describes as a character. Hold on, quick water break. Talking too much. So yeah, like I said, it was very awesome just to see how he talked about dealing with different people and meeting people where they are, and then figuring out how you could use them to get what you want. It's a really 48 laws of power type book without saying these are the 48 laws. It's more like this is how you negotiate and deal with people without looking like you're using the 48 laws of power, even though you're using the 48 laws of power. So I would definitely say check that book out. The next book is How We Play the Game, which is Ed Stack, and Ed Stack is the CEO, well, former CEO of Dick's Sporting Goods. This one, it was just really good. I don't really have any, it's just showing how he took his company, he built it. It's built on characters and principles and the things that he went through, and it's just a really good autobiography. This one, I didn't get the same vibes that I got from The Ride of a Lifetime, where it talked more so about the business tactics and the things that he used. This was more, hey, and now that I think about it, looking back, it's definitely a tailored book. It just showcases, his principles and culture and morals without saying, these are my principles and cultures and morals, which the more autobiographies of CEOs you read, the more you'll see, you kind of have to read between the lines and figure out what you can take and how you can implement it in your life or your business. Don't read these books going in like, oh yeah, this guy's just a legend and everything he did was awesome. Look at it from the perspective of, he did it, I can do it too. These are some things that I could pick apart and I could use and implement in order to make my life better or my business more successful. So that's how I go into reading these CEO autobiographies, and this one was pretty much that. It really didn't get into negotiations in that much the way that it's how The Ride of a Lifetime did, but it's still a great book, and I definitely suggest you read it. The next one was Black Fortunes. So what I try to do every February is I focus on Black stories, whether it's a Black author or it's a Black biography, or it's just something. I just try to read Black books for the month of February. It's something that I started last year, actually, 2020. So I've been doing that because I'm like, if I'm reading all these books, I gotta read some black books. Otherwise, like, So I've been finding different books. This one is Black Fortunes by Shamari Wells, and it talks about the first black millionaires in America. And it's not the people that you think. It's like black people that were millionaires in the 1800s and the early 1900s. And it just talks about how they accumulated their wealth and what they had to do to get their money. And it also, what stood out to me the most about this book is that even though these people made this money, they still had to deal with the fact that they were black. So you had this one guy, I can't remember his name, but he was a black millionaire in New York, and he was dating a white woman. And so they came and trashed his house and they burned it because they were, number one, mad that he was very wealthy and successful, and a lot of people during that time weren't. Number two, he was dating a white woman and he's this black man. Who do you think you are? So we gonna get you right up out of there. So they got him out of there. He didn't die, thankfully, but after that, he learned to live a lot more secluded life, and he kind of stayed into the shadows. But it's a very, very interesting book. And like I said, the biggest takeaway for me is it shows that no matter how much money you have, how much wealth you accumulate, if you're black in this world, you still have to move a certain way. It doesn't matter. You can be the richest black man in the world, which today I think is Kanye, if I'm not mistaken. Well, no, the richest black American. But you could be the richest black man in the world, which is an African dude. I think his name was Alike Danube or Alinka. It was Alike D something, whatever. Anyway, my point is no matter how much money you have, if you're a black person, you still have to move a certain way because people will do anything in their power because they don't want to see a successful black person because they work too hard to keep you unsuccessful. Moving right along, the next book that I read, Don't Kill Me, it was Gifted Hands by Ben Carson. I really wanted to read this book. We can separate the politics and all of that stuff. Yes, Ben Carson is what many people consider to be a COO, the rest. And yeah, that it is what it is. But I read the book because he's still a successful black person. At the end of the day, we may not agree philosophically, we may not agree with his tactics, but at the end of the day, we're all a part of the system, and we all respond to trauma differently. Some people rebel against the trauma and they become, say, a Louis Farrakhan for whatever reason, or Elijah Muhammad, or whatever. You have people that go one way. You have your Malcolm X's, you have your Martin Luther Kings, you have your, just so many different people that go one way against the system, and then you have people that the system is battered, beaten down, and just respond differently. And you never want to victim blame. So I look at that. They always say you don't victim blame, you don't victim blame. Well, that's the mentality that I apply to black people. So if I see a defeated black person that they bow down to the system and they go above and beyond for such and such, then I don't like it, but at the end of the day, I understand because, like I said, we all respond to trauma differently. In any event, this was a great book. I don't know how true it was because I've been looking, and they say a lot of the stuff that he said was cap and it wasn't official. It didn't happen. But however, at the end of the day, he was a very successful black person, a very successful doctor. He accomplished things that other people never could have imagined. And in his own way, he did give back and he did a lot for the community. So, like I said, we're all victims and we all respond to our trauma differently. So even though I don't agree with him politically or philosophically, I still read the book. I still learned a lot from it. And I'd encourage you to read it with an open mind and look at, what he was talking about. Now, on the very opposite end of that book, the next book I read is The Spook Who Sat by the Door. like if you go from, it's just like I was talking about. You have people that go this way in the system, and then you have people that go this way in the system. Now, The Spook Who Sat by the Door, I did not know this when I read the book, but the author of the book was actually a Kappa as well. I don't know. Shout out to all the Kappa authors out there. I'm working on my book. I've been working on this book for years. It's been in development hell. Translation. I have never written the book. I started. Actually, no, I lied. I started last year during the pandemic, but I don't know. I never finished it. So Shout out to all the Kappas out there that are authors and writing books, man. But the spook who sat by the door. And let me just say, as a disclaimer, even though he was a Kappa, he still took the opportunity to say, yo, and he didn't say he was a Kappa in the book, because the book is not about him at all. I don't know. I'll tell you. But anyways, spoiler alert. It's about this black guy. He's the first black guy that the CIA hires, and they think, oh, he'll just be a Ben Carson. He'll just come in and he'll be a public face. We'll get the black vote because we hired a black person, and we can say we're giving black people jobs now. Pause real quick. Man, it's funny how this book was written decades ago, and it's talking about how people do little trinket things and give symbolic victories for black people, and then they get the black vote. But anyways, so this guy learns everything that he can from the CIA, and then he takes it and he links up with the street gang, and they start taking over everything. And I thought it was pretty good. It was great. I definitely encourage everybody to check out that book, man. I'm not gonna go too deep into detail, but this is another one that I went through. Like, as soon as I finished this book, got to do it again. So this is another one that I doubled up on. Why Should White Guys Have All the Fun and The Spook That Sat by the Door. Both of these were just instantly, oh, I gotta do this one again. And it just so happens that both of them were written by Kappa. So, I mean, hey, there's that too. And then also, even though he was a Kappa, he talked about how people joined these black fraternities and they thought that they were better than everybody else, but they weren't really putting in the work. And I thought that was cool too. At the time when I was reading it, I just thought, oh man, like, I get that standpoint to the fullest. I never understood why we get letters and then all of a sudden we act like we're just above and beyond. And yes, I understand the mindset. And yes, certain things do make you better, but at the same time, you got to help who you can. There are certain people that, you want to try to make sure that you can help who you can and you don't turn your back. Even if it's, it's just a few people, you give them a job or you hire in and you change their lives, because you can't save everybody. It just is what it is. But I don't know. That's just something that I grapple with personally. But don't want to go into that. We'll say that for later. Moving on, the next book was Hurricanes by Rick Ross, another black author. I don't think he actually wrote this book. And I remember when he was on the Breakfast Club, he said that he didn't even read the book. But, it is what it is. I understand that. I don't like looking at my old videos. Or if I was an artist, I probably wouldn't like listening to my music either. But I get it. But it was a pretty good book. It's Rick Ross. And, Rick Ross is a great liar. A beautiful, beautiful, beautiful liar, pause. But we know Rick Ross tells some tall tales. I think it was cool to see his come up and the things that he went through. If they really happened, I don't know. I don't really want to, I don't want to sound like I'm playing Ross, because I really enjoy his music. I really enjoy the things that he's doing in the community, his ownership. But, it's just hard for me to look at Rick Ross and not see the cap. Like, Ross is just a great liar. But really, really, really great books. And, maybe he's not lying. I don't know, but I don't know. It's just weird. I enjoyed the book in any event, though. It was really good. I finished it, so it was good. I definitely say check it out. I don't know. The next book was the autobiography of Rick Ross, the guy whose name was really Rick Ross. That one. So yeah, that was an amazing book, man. Just showing how the system kind of used a black man as a pawn, and he was the boogeyman, and he did all this and all that, when the whole time it was the CIA that was really running everything, and they were using him. And it's like the 48 laws of power. Use a cat's paw. Have someone else take the fall for whatever you do. I don't remember the law off the top of my head, but basically, you get others to do your dirty work. Like, you take this little black dude off the street, you build him up, you tell him that he's this, that, you give him all the money in the world, and then once he's no longer useful for you, then you take him, you turn him around, you throw him in jail, you make him take the fall for everything that you were going to do anyway. But you pin it on him, and then he looks like the bad guy. So, that was it. I really enjoyed that book though. Really class lesson. I definitely say check that out. Next book I read was Winning by Tim Grover. Tim Grover is another one of those authors, man. I follow him on Instagram. I listen to a lot of his content and his podcast. Tim Grover is the man. For those of you who don't know who Tim Grover is, that was Michael Jordan's trainer for a number of years and Kobe Bryant's trainer for a number of years. And oh, let's not forget, he's working with Russell Wilson right now. And, you know, he trained, he was working with Tiger Woods for a long time. And basically, all of the great athletes, when they want to get right, they call Tim Grover. So Winning just basically talks about the mentality and the mindset that you have to have. I like it because he personifies winning as a person or just this energy that you have to constantly chase. It's like a wild animal, you know. It may love you for the moment, it may be there while it's with you, but you always have to work for it. You always have to go constantly pursue it. You have to dedicate and you have to stay focused to it and stay consistent and persistent. I really enjoy this book. I definitely urge everybody to check this out, as well as his other book, Relentless. I read that book as well, and it was actually a guy, Jay Scarborough, shout out to him, from Greenville, South Carolina. He was a realtor. He probably still is a realtor, but he put me on Tim Grover a while back, like 2017, 2016. It was 2017. 2017, he put me on Relentless. I read that book and, you know, it just made a mental shift in my mind. So definitely check out Winning by Tim Grover. Like I said, I put all the books up there. There you go. Winning by Tim Grover. It's an awesome book. Check it out. The next book I read was Hunting Humans. This one is basically a psychology book. It just talks about the mindset of humans. And it comes from the standpoint of if you ever play Red Dead Revolver 2, you have the compendium and it talks about the different animals and it shows you how to kill them. It shows you how to hunt them. Well, that's what Hunting Humans talks about, but instead of animals, it's human. It talks about the different brain functions and how things work together, your neocortex, and how to stimulate it and how to say things a certain way, how to carry yourself, just different ways on how to interact with humans and use it in order to get what you need. Voice intonation, inflection, not sounding monotone, just little things that you can use in order to be a more effective communicator, be more persuasive, do things that you need to do in order to get what you want out of people, which again leads me back to the ride of a lifetime, because that's all he was doing. So if you want to get the play-by-play on how to do that type of stuff, then I definitely suggest checking out Hunting Humans. That was another good book I read. The next one, very similar, and again, this is another one of those books. It is what it is. I read Pimpology by Pimp and Ken, which was, I think he called it the 48 Laws of Game. Very good book. It talks about pimping, and, you know, here's my thing. I study pimps. It is what it is. For me, it started off with the obsession of trying to understand how a man could convince a woman to have sex with another man and then get paid for it and give the money to him. And that just led me down a spiral to where I look up all kind of stuff on YouTube. I follow pimps. I look at pimps, and you know, morally, it is what it is. Morally, it's not right. You know, I would definitely say don't do that. But there are things that you can learn from them. But I mean, don't get it twisted. I listen to everything. I watch Adolf Hitler documentaries. I look at white supremacists. I watch Donald Trump. You know, there's a lot of things that you can learn. Things that we call evil and bad, and we just say, oh no, I don't want to do that. You can learn a lot from these people. So, you know, Pimpology. And what you'll find is the more that you learn this stuff and the more that you look into it, the more you see it in your everyday life. Somebody will look at a pimp and say, oh, pimps are evil. Well, if you look at a company is the biggest pimp out there. They're pimping. You know, granted, you're not having sex for your money, but a lot of times you're doing things that you don't like doing. You're doing things that you're uncomfortable doing. You're doing things that you don't want to do, and you're doing it for money. So to a certain degree, you're being pimped out, you know, and it is what it is. You may not like it, you may not understand it, you may not agree with it, but it's happening. So the best thing you could do is learn and be aware of it and understand how you can use it to benefit you or how you can use it to defend yourself for it being used against you. That's all I'm gonna say about that. The next book I read was 11 Rings by Phil Jackson. Awesome, awesome, awesome book. Um, Phil is just the Zen master, man. Like, just feel his equanimity. It just transcends the words, and it's actually in his book. When you read it, it feels like you're talking to Phil Jackson, and it's just him talking about his rings, and more so it's talking about the climate and the culture that he created, and he gifted people books and the things that he did just to build team building and trust amongst his teammates. And once they build the trust, then they focus on basketball. It's like first you have to understand the person and you have to meet the person where they are. And then once you understand where that person is, then you can get into figuring out how you can get this person to do what you want them to do or do what you need them to do, which ultimately goes back to the second book on my list, The Ride of a Lifetime. It's the same thing. And if you notice, I do have a habit of reading these types of books because I study people. I don't really deal with people that much because I've kind of put myself in a box and kind of isolated myself just so I could focus on my family and building. But I still have to interact with people. I still have to deal with people. So the best thing you could do is learn and understand the people that surround you and the people in your world. So 11 Rings was a great book for team building and things of that nature. I definitely say check it out as well. The next book I read was Economix, and it's just what you see is what you get. It's a comic about economics. And I mean, I like to take things and break them down to the very, very basic level. I have a master's degree. I have my MBA in business, of course, obviously, but I still study business. And I, I just wanted to get a better understanding of economics. So I got that book. Check it out. Next book was Who Moved My Cheese? This book was actually embarrassing because one of my frat brothers, Joseph Abraham, shout out to him, he put me on this book years ago. I want to say 2015, 2016. It had to be 15, or maybe it was 14. In any event, he put me on this book years ago, and I never read it. I always said that I would. I was thrifting, I found the book, and I checked it out. I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. I actually felt bad because I wish I read it sooner. This is another mindset book. It's basically talking about how you deal with change. You can accept change. You can accept change and roll with it and keep it moving, never get comfortable and always adapt to the changes. You can get stuck and wish that the change didn't happen. You can sit there, or you can just kind of be stuck for a while and then go after it. It's a great book. It's just, I don't know, it's so simple that it's kind of hard to make it more than what it was, but it's a very, very, very impactful book, and I definitely encourage you to check that one out. The next book I read was Think Like a Freak. It's from the Freakonomic guys, the two Stevens, and they were physicists, or they're very smart people, and then they got into the economy, and it just talks about how when you think about things from a different standpoint or a different approach, you can get results that most people will overlook because they're thinking standard. So thinking like a freak is basically adapting your mind to see things outside of the box, the stereotypical box. So, you may look at this and say, oh, it's a container that holds water. But somebody else may say, it's something that you hang stuff with. Just thinking outside of the box and seeing things for more than what you see on the surface level, or what people tell you that things are, and just coming up with different solutions by not thinking traditionally. The next book is The Dip by Seth Godin. Seth Godin is another one of my favorite authors. He writes these little short books that hit home and they're very effective. The Dip talks about, actually, I have two Seth Godin books. I'm tripping. I have a good bit of Seth Godin books. I really enjoy Seth Godin. He's a great author. The Dip just talks about how, what do you do when things go down? When it dips, things dip. Life is ups and downs and ups and downs. When things go down, what do you do? How do you manage those? Really great book. Check it out. And the last book that I finished this year was One Click, and that is a book about Jeff Bezos and Amazon, which you know, it's just a book about Amazon and Jeff Bezos. You know, it's a biography. I think it's pretty cool. It talks about how Jeff Bezos became who he is and just kind of set the stage for understanding Jeff Bezos. And I just like to study CEOs. And it's funny because I read an article just today, and I think I'll post that in the description as well. And it talks about how Jeff Bezos beat the press when the scandal dropped a couple years ago about him cheating on his wife and having an extramarital affair. And then he was sending sexting pictures of his junk, and his girlfriend's brother was selling his information to the tabloids, and how he somehow managed to come out on top of all of that and still become richer than he was before. Um, I just thought that that was pretty fascinating. You know, a lot of people think that you just trip and become a billionaire if you find something and you get lucky. You got to understand these people are very, very smart, or they have very, very smart people around them, and they're very insulated, which is why, you know, a lot of times I get frustrated with the way that things come out about Kanye, because it's like, y'all don't see what he's doing. He's just creating attention so that he can build and make more money. And y'all, it's like people, again, only see the surface of things, and they don't look past what's going on. They only see the headlines, and they don't look at the whole story. Or they don't think how this headline affects the profit of this or that. Because if Kanye was really crazy, there's no way Adidas would be going into business with him and he'd be making them so much money. Now, on the flip side of that, look at Gap. He has all this money, but they don't want to work with him. They didn't want to work with him. They said he should stick to music and whoop-de-whoop, blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, it's just so much out there that you can learn. One Click was great as well. I definitely suggest you check that out. I enjoyed it. Like I said, this year I focused more so on reading books that I knew I would like and I knew I would enjoy. I didn't focus on the quantity of the books. And right now, just so you know, I'm reading Daily Laws by Robert Greene. And I'm also reading Titan. And it's about, not Carnegie, it's about John Rockefeller. So always make sure you're reading, but don't just read just to read. Make sure you're taking notes. Make sure you're highlighting. Make sure that you're saving these things to your memory banks. The best thing you can do is learn from the experiences of others. It's good to have your own experience, but if you could look and see somebody did this and it didn't work for them, then you might want to make sure that you don't do that because you saw where it got them. And that's it, guys. Those are my books of 2020. Sorry for this video being so long. I was just going and flowing. I did not expect it to be 32 or 33 minutes, but it's kind of what happens when you're having fun. So let me know what your favorite book is. Let me know what you like. Let me know what you've been reading. I think I'll do more videos about books because people are always asking me what I'm reading or what have I read or what are some articles that I saw. So yeah, we're going to get that rolling too. We got a lot of content coming 2022. I'm really excited. I'm back. I just got a lot of stuff that I want to share, so we'll see what happens. I will holler at you guys in the next one. Make sure you check out the last one. Make sure you check out the streaming of the games. Make sure you check out the family videos. And we just going to keep hitting you up in your head top with content. You feel me? Holla.